I will. Could I defer to our student?
You may, yeah. Mr. Lucas, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance from the audience? All right.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right. Roll call, Ms. Brewer, please.
Commissioner Brown,
Here.
Commissioner or Vice Chair Couchy. Here. Chair Martos.
Here. And for the record, Commissioner Johnson should be joining us remotely soon. So let us know when she is online. Okay. All right. We will, since we have somebody in the audience, we'll open up public comment. So members may speak on any agenda not item not on the agenda. You may suggest items to be added to future commissions as an agenda item during this public comment period. Ralph M. Brown Act prohibits the commission from acting on any matter that's not on the agenda. And speakers are requested to fill, but you're the only one, and I know who you are, so you're good. At this time, I'll allow you, Lucas, if you want to say anything during public comment or defer. Okay. So I'll close public comment and we'll move on to item 6A, which is review of the Teaspoon Subcommittee report on key performance indicators. And we have a special presenter tonight, or maybe two, Vice Chair Couch, possibly her partner, Commissioner Brown. So I'll turn the floor over to you, Vice Chair Couchy.
Okay. So I'm going to be looking at you because this is really, Tony and I put this together. I did have one meeting with Andy on this, and we did come to agreement on the safety part and the results part, but not on the execution part. So the thought was today, basically to go through this report with you. And in the report, it shows how we have, three metrics: safety, execution, and results. And the data that we got for those three metrics, the analysis that we did on those three metrics, and then have a discussion kind of what we wanted to put as the goal to achieve over the next 3 years on those metrics. And we put some recommendations in there, but obviously this needs to be a discussion. All right, so quick overview. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will read the first part. So this report summarizes the findings of the ESP Metrics Subcommittee. And the goal of the subcommittee is to provide a set of potential goals or targets with measurable metrics to be used by Teaspoon. And the objective of these metrics are to provide clear and measurable goals for transportation infrastructure, to provide progress against these goals, and to ensure alignment with City Council, city staff, Teaspoon, outside consultants, and the Burlingame community as a whole. All right, so again, it was concluded that the most appropriate performance metrics would focus on safety, execution, and then results. Safety would be assessed through monitoring of accidents and fatality rates, both across the city as a whole, as well as what's happening on the Broadway Railroad crossing. And then execution would be measured by the city's progress in implementing the bike ped master plan. And then the results would vary year to year. There would be some sort of major project that would be picked, and then we would look at the results of the changes that were made and how they impacted the goals. Again, the next steps are to present and discuss these findings tonight. Then we meet with Syed. We were hoping to meet with him before, but because he's been sick and traveling, we haven't been able to. And then once the metrics are agreed upon, they'd be presented to City Council. And then there would be a report annually to the public and city council, the progress against these metrics. All right. So let's talk about the safety metric. You can see there is a chart that shows citywide data for 2018 through 2024. And we're showing, this came off of TMS, which is the Transportation Injury Mapping System that's maintained by Berkeley. All right, and so this shows the number of incidents under each category for the years 2018 through 2024. 2020 and 2021 are highlighted in orange because those were the COVID years. And we did some analysis with the COVID years, without the COVID years, and we can talk about that a little bit later. Then the Broadway crossing data, again, this is what we found off of TMS. We also looked at the data that the city had provided in a report for the Broadway grade separation. But we found that we were able to find more data at TMS. So that's what this is reflected here. And again, you can see there are three different categories: severity, fatalities, injured, and then the years 2018 through 2024. Okay. All right. So when we did the analysis, we looked at what were the totals, and let me back up. We have a spreadsheet that I think has 10 tabs in it. It's pretty lengthy, and it's something that could be shared with Teaspoon. But for today, we just thought it was easier to kind of present it like this. But if that's something that you would like to see, we obviously can provide that. Is there anything else, Tony?
No, just before I want to just chime in a little bit because
Sorry.
no, you are,
I'm so
this is
sorry.
definitely Vice Chair's Couchie's passion, I'll say. And it was a incredible learning experience for me. So there's a lot of information.
Welcome. Welcome to the Teaspoon.
So I just want to give her props because she spent a lot of time, a lot of energy on this. And I learned quite a bit, actually being on trails, walking trails, driving trails, just to get this information as defined as we possibly could. So I just want to make sure that she knows that it was a very good learning experience for me, and my support was just there for support. So I just wanted to chime in with that before.
Well, this is becoming, I'm
I think she's
handing the
it off.
baton. I'm handing the baton, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so on citywide, we looked at what were the numbers over the last 7 years and what do those averages look like? And then we said, okay, let's look at what those numbers look like if we pull out the COVID years and what do those averages look like? And then we said, okay, let's look at the last 5 years and then what are those averages look like? And we were trying to see, is it trending up? Is it kind of staying the same? How did COVID affect the numbers? Because we wanted to make sure if we were using a metric, that it wasn't highly affected by, what happened with COVID. And then we had a conversation on these numbers with CityThread, which is the consulting firm that we were using. And they too are, we had conversations with them about setting metrics, and we talked to them about kind of what the goals should be in these metrics. And they suggested that you look at what the highest numbers are, you look at what the lowest numbers are, and you look at, what's the difference and how is that trending. So that is why you see that we did that as well. So we said, okay, what are the highest numbers and the lowest numbers? What are the lowest numbers outside of COVID? And we thought it made more sense to take the COVID out.
Mhm.
And so the difference between the high numbers and the low numbers are what you see on that very bottom row. And you can see that it ranges from, 25%, it's 26%, up to 64%. So there's quite a bit of difference in the severe accidents, accidents that are considered severe. So looking at that number of the difference between the high and the low, and looking also how the numbers are trending after the last 3 years, we recommend that we set a target of achieving something between 25 and 35% reduction in the 5-year average of each category over the next 3 years. We did think, though, we should be setting the fatality goal to be 0, and that actually would be a 75% reduction. But we thought that we didn't feel comfortable stating that our goal should be 1, and hence the reason we said 0. And that is more in line with Vision Zero as well.
Yeah.
So let me pause there and kind of see what your questions are and what your thoughts are on the reduction number.
Well, I did think I found a typo. So under fatalities citywide, I counted 10 and you wrote 11, unless there's something missing from 2018 or 2023 or something. Not right. Correct.
No, it should be a 10.
Okay. All right. So we'll, in the next draft of the report or the final draft, whatever, that should be changed to a 10.
Okay.
Well, questions. I mean, this is all good info, really good info. A lot of study went into this, and it's not something that is an engineer's report, so I don't think we can vote on anything tonight. But question that I have is, when do you think you'll have a final draft? Because what I would like to see done with this data is provided to the Vision Zero CAC, Community Advisory Committee, let them assimilate this and integrate it into the data that they're collecting, and then bring all this back to the committee, the Vision Zero Committee, so that we can, as a community, the council's part of that, and other members of the community, look at this and make, good decisions on how we're going to achieve those goals. I like the goals, great goals, Are they achievable? That's, our consultants maybe can help us with that and see what is achievable. When I think of goals, I always think of SMART goals, right? Because I was groomed on SMART goals. And I had to tell all my employees, SMART goals, they're specific, we can measure them, they're achievable, meaning that we have the staff that can work those things. They're relevant, right? They're things that are within our purview that we can work on, right? And they're time bound, right? So when I think of goals, we want to really constrain it and be very specific so that we can show progress when we bring this back to council and say we're either making progress or we're not making progress, and not blur the lines. So I think this is a great start. This would be great in the hands of the Vision Zero group, the consultants. And, I would recommend that we change the wording on here and move it from first draft to a little more mature. There is going to be another meeting next month in June for Vision Zero. The first meeting, we talked about things that we wanted them to study and go collect data on. Broadway interchange was a big one that came up with a lot of people. So this will fit right in. If we can get this to them soon, this will fit right in with their compilation of data when they bring it back to the group in late, I think it's late June.
So you're on that Vision Zero,
I am, yeah.
right?
Mm.
So could you take this to them or tell us who we need to take it to?
Am I out of time? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, I can. Yeah, absolutely, I can. But you see what I'm saying? I prefer this to say something like final draft or something. It looks rough. First draft looks kind of rough to me.
All right.
Is just the name of, sorry, Chairman, is just the name of it rough, or is there some more refinement we need to do to?
Well, that's up to you because you all labeled it first draft. Are you comfortable with it? I haven't analyzed it nearly as much as you all have. But when you're comfortable with it, I'm more than comfortable taking it or providing it.
I'm very, I
Consult.
think it's fine to give to them.
Okay,
Is
okay,
the only reason I put first draft on there is
yeah,
the first time it's being presented to,
okay,
because this has to be something we agree upon
yeah,
as a commission,
yeah.
not just subcommittee takes it and says this is what it is.
Right, right, right. And I, because we have Vision Zero, this is a great opportunity to really get more eyes on it through that advisory committee.
So it's
Really
interesting.
study this.
When we originally had a meeting on this with Don, it was Mayor Donna Coulson at the
Uh-huh.
time, and Syed. They both, I originally said we should get the safety metrics from Vision Zero, and
Yeah.
they both said, no, you should be giving this to.
Okay,
There.
yeah, okay,
So,
all right. Well,
interesting that was your first comment.
yeah, because I always look at our committees. We either do advanced studies, detailed studies to provide to engineering, right? Because they're either not resourced to do that, or we just have better insight because we live in the community. And this is kind of the same thing. We have consultants and they are studying it, but you all have studied this as well. And so we can, I think, put this in their database, if you want to think of it like that, and combine it with everything that they've done so that we get, our best understanding of the entire metrics, and we can make good decisions as a community what we can do about it.
So I couldn't attend the June Vision Zero meeting, but
Yeah.
I could get this to them before then.
Okay,
And I could, if I need to have a conversation with them, I could do that.
yeah, okay. So, other comments? So, another thought I had, when I see, so safety citywide, of course, a big issue, but then you started to focus in on Broadway, on the Broadway interchange. And obviously, we all know that's our most critical and dangerous intersection in probably all of California. A couple months back, I attended the San Mateo County Transportation Authority discussion on budgets and things. And, they've got a lot of different projects that they're looking at, and they have funding that they want to apply to several different projects. And some of the debate came back with, instead of providing a little bit of money to a bunch of projects, maybe they should look at the highest priority projects and think about putting more funds towards those. The good news is, and the bad news is that Broadway interchange is at the top of the list, and so, so your analysis on Broadway and some of the data, they may already have it, but the other thought I had was, from your analysis, if we could have a messenger share this with them as well. We're trying, I don't know how Andy was there that night, Mr. Wong was there that night. I don't know how we convince them that our project is the most important of all the projects they're looking at in San Mateo County to fund. But any additional data we can put in front of them is only going to help our cause, right? And so when I saw this focus on the Broadway interchange, I thought, okay, what can we do with that? We can't build the interchange, but we need money.
Mm.
So we can maybe go advocate for more money based on the research that you both have done on this, and that might be a way to, get some value out of this. It's without question that it's a safety issue. I just don't know how much we can do as a city, as the engineering department on that interchange. But if we can try and advocate for funding because of this study, that might help as well.
Do you have, Mr. Wong, any thoughts or comments on?
Through the chair, before I forget, Commissioner Johnson is online. She did raise her hand, so you get to her.
We'll go to her, yeah, when I'm done.
Oh, I see.
Again, with the collisions, the both, obviously Caltrain knows this, we get some of the data from them, as well as the county, or San Mateo County Transportation Authority. They have the same information because we've been sharing it with their staffing, right? We're top of the list in the Section 190 grade elimination funding. They see the reports as well. So I think, yeah, they have a very good idea of this. And there are certain, again, when we get into this, it's certain collisions. I saw, and I'd have to double check some of these, there's a lot of collisions, but the collisions that they count are auto and train related at that location. Because if someone, it's not part of the equation, but if someone does another type of incident on there, or if it's a bicycle, someone ran into something, they want to know what the train related ones are and related to the crossing. So, but they have that information through the submissions we've been doing to the Section 190 funding.
So we did not limit it to a train
Correct. I
hitting,
assume that.
but I do think it needs to be thought outside train, because I believe that intersection, because of the setup
Sure.
and not necessarily, there's danger associated with it, not necessarily being hit by a train, but causing other collisions because of the setup.
No, and even through the design, through the chair, even through the design, that's been accounted for, right? Obviously, there's no bike facility going there. Crossing the tracks is limited because you'd have to walk on the tracks, but it doesn't look anything like Morel when you cross. It's a little rougher. It's not as easy if you're mobility challenge, things like that. So no, and not to lay it all into this, but the grade separation design accounts for all this. And even before, when there was a station option, it went through there. But and the Transportation Authority has be known to Caltrain, the design staff, that this project, you've heard talk about, the station being removed, things like that. That may happen. But as far as getting bicycle facilities across, that has to be part of whatever improvements occur with that, because that's where some of the funding comes from, trying to improve bicycle facilities.
Okay.
So that is accounted for, not changing.
Well, if there's anything we could do with this data, that would be helpful to getting the funding.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Yeah.
And we can do that.
Yeah.
Or Tony.
Yeah.
I'm taking a lot of notes. We're good.
Okay, so then the other thing under execution, and I didn't read the whole thing. I apologize. I got
Wait, you're an expert.
further. Oh, I'll pause. Yeah. Okay. So, where you were up to Broadway rail crossings. Okay. So
Yes.
we have not gone into execution yet. Okay. So
Before we leave,
I want,
go to execution, should we?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Commissioner Johnson, how's Nebraska?
Oh gosh. It's
Hot?
warm. It's my hometown. So it's changed a lot, but it hasn't changed at all, right? That's how hometowns go. I'm sorry I popped in about 5 minutes late. But it's an observation, and again, guys, I'm not in the room, so if it's not the right time to make the observation, please, I apologize for that. I guess just stepping up a level. I hate it when people say that because it's like, oh, you weren't deep in the weeds, so you get to do that. I would just say, I think there's a huge opportunity to marry this great work and investigation to the Vision Zero project. And again, it comes back to honing in on the biggest priorities in the city around the biggest problematic areas. First of all, irrespective of Vision Zero and AMP and everything else going on, I think it's super important for our commission to have KPIs that we share, which is how we measure ourselves, right? It's how we measure the work. But in light of the fact that we have these broader initiatives which have a pulse, which are shaping and taking form within our community, which have visibility, the community can only absorb so much. So if Vision Zero is the thing that the community is engaging with, my recommendation would be to take this great work and make sure that it finds a home within that framework. And stitching that together would be super important, in the same way that the AMP project and the work to accelerate Vision Zero, which is the goal of the AMP project, needs to fit within that framework. And so I'm thinking it from a constituent perspective, from a council perspective, from a community perspective, and our role in that would be, we need to feed into the greater good so that we're not something else out here that people are trying to digest and understand. And I think the work here is so important and the data is so important, that it deserves a home and a connective tissue, to use an overused word, to the Vision Zero project. And again, I'm not tightly intertwined with Vision Zero, but that's just my observation from the heartland of Nebraska.
So I
stop
do agree. And we talked about that earlier and you might have missed that. That was actually
apologize.
something that Chair Martos brought up. I almost said Vice Chair. That was so weird. Chair Martos brought up.
You're
And-
demoting him already.
and that was, yeah, and that was about feeding us into Vision Zero. And then the other thing that I said is, when this was originally started, there was a conversation with Mayor Colson at the time, and we said we would take the metrics from Vision Zero and put them into this document. And she said, no, actually, what you need to do is you do this work and then feed it into.
Perfect. Got it.
I
Thank
do
you.
think everybody is aligned on feeding this piece, that safety piece, into Vision Zero. And I do think the execution piece is tied in with AMP.
Yep,
So they
absolutely.
are very tied into the other project.
Okay. Do you want to move on to the execution and the results?
Just before I do, any comments or thoughts on the recommendation between the 35 and 50% reduction over the railroad crossing?
Go higher. Yeah, I mean,
Because I don't know if you saw the numbers are
yeah. I
shocking, actually.
I agree. I mean, is that realistic? You know, back to SMART goals. You know, we all want that to go to zero. So how quickly do something to make it go to zero? I don't know, but for further discussion, I guess, with Vision Zero or other.
The fatality is at zero, just so you know.
Yeah,
But the,
yeah.
I can
Surprised.
see there's not a title here, all of
Right.
that, or a header,
Okay.
sorry.
Mhm.
But the, that's why it's a draft. But you can see it's pretty much a 300% increase across
Yeah.
the board, which
Yeah.
is shocking.
Yeah. Mr. Wong, that's true? No fatalities in the last 7 years on that crossing?
Um, there was
I'm not-
one,
you-
no, that's during the COVID, there was definitely one.
Oh, there was one during.
There was,
Okay,
it's there. So
okay.
And
Did,
this
did
is a-
something change between 2023 and 2024? In that cross, like it went from collision severity of 5 to 14? I mean, did something change on markings, assigned, like? That's a big jump.
and through the chair, so I've been looking at the train related ones. So I don't think the number is that high because the other ones were included. So there could be, of someone falling on tripping on there. That could account for many of them. Again, that's why, you have the numbers here, but even with Division Zero, it's not just looking at the check mark that there was a collision. It's going into those reports, seeing what the primary collision factor or what it was that did it.
In the spreadsheet, we do have like the report numbers and all
Right.
that stuff. So we do have that, obviously can be shared with everyone.
No, and we can, if that information, if I can't imagine Vision Zero wouldn't have that, but if not, that would be helpful for them because yeah, they have to go through it because as they're all bad. We'll just say that, but a collision is not you have to figure out what it is. Was it a driver or was it something on the engineering or city side? Was it a lighting? Was it something was out? So you have to factor those in order to try to correct it. Otherwise you're just shooting. Yeah. You're just guessing at what try to improve.
But also, I do know too that Mr. Wong said there have been discussions with Caltrans, right? I believe that's who it was, to see if there's anything that can be done to improve safety at the intersection before the grade separation.
Through chair, and Caltrain, I get them mixed up too. Caltrans, not the state, it's Caltrain.
Okay.
They have been, if you've been out there now, some of the incidents that aren't reported necessarily are vehicles that come from Broadway and make a right turn onto the tracks thinking it is a driveway or something. So some of those might be in here. While fortunate that nothing occurred because it was in between trains, Caltrain has improved. If you go and they need to continue. I believe there's a discussion of doing some other things, but if you go out there now, there are reflectors and lighting that come on at night it's red. It's like if you go, not that any of you have, but if you go the wrong way down the highway, they'll turn red. You'll see those, the dots or the reflectors, they'll be red, but as you go the other way, you just see them as white.
Right.
So something like that is done similar. They have implemented something called Rail Sentry already, where there's a camera that monitors the track crossing. If something occurs, it sends a message to someone indicating and someone looks at it, but it warns the engineer that they need to start braking because something's up ahead. So the train would stop further ahead. I mean, obviously it's, if the train's barreling down there, it's going northbound past Broadway Station and it sees something, then that's something that it may not correct, but for ones that it's a foul on the tracks, something, there's a car stuck, it'll warn them so they have that distance. So they've already done stuff like that. We're working on, we'll be restriping the pavement markings that are out there, the lane lines, the railroad crossing, additional signs. So we'll be doing some stuff, but again, there's only so much. There was talk of painting the area right on the tracks red by Caltrain to do something to make people stay out of this area. As far as I know, they have to go another iteration because they have to get approval for it'll be the first time it's done in the country. So there's certain painting on the pavement that's been approved. And right now they haven't gotten that approval yet. So we support that. I mean, Director Martuzza, we've been in these meetings and we support anything that's done, and that sounded reasonable. And actually, Director Martuzza brought it up once before to them before Caltrain brought it up. So now we're kind of on the same page, but now it's getting the approval or the CPUC to sign off on it. So yes, we're trying to get that number down without grade separation. because that'll be.
So I do,
Okay.
I do think that's an important note because we could make, there could be some progress
Yeah.
and reduction made prior to the grade separation.
I'll retract my apathetic statement that what can we do? Sounds like we can do
We could,
something.
and these numbers could help us, I think, in telling the story
Yeah.
on the grade separation.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good.
All right, so
Move.
move to.
Yeah, I think you can move on. Good, Commissioner Johnson, for to move on. Go to execution and
Okay.
results. Okay, very good.
Thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so again, the objective of the execution metric is to track the progress structure of the implementation of the Bike Ped Master Plan. And, the goal of that plan is to improve traffic congestion and enhance safety for both bicyclists and pedestrians. So what we did is when we looked at the bike plan, there are 3 routes that are identified. There's the commuter route,
Mm-hmm.
commuters trying to get to the train station or to downtown. There's the safe school route, and that is basically children or parents getting to their local school. And then there's the recreational route, which is those that are using the bike trail, the Bay Trail to get exercise and enjoy the outdoors. We do think it'd be, ideal to look at all 3 routes, but there's a little more complexity to the safe school routes. And so for that reason, we said, okay, this is, our first pass at these metrics. Let's do the commuter route and recreational route this year, and the safe school routes could be next year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we looked at the routes, we looked at a few things. First, we looked at the plan versus existing. So on the plan, what does it show is going to be implemented and what is actually implemented today? And then we identified that what has been implemented is exactly as was outlined on the plan, or it's better than what was on the plan, or not quite as good what was on the plan, or changes haven't been made yet. And I didn't note, but I should have earlier, that there's a lot of exhibits on the back kind of showing kind of screenshots of our spreadsheets as well as screenshots of what was relevant from the bike plan. All right, so then we also looked at how much of the plan is, or the infrastructure is signage, right? A Sharrow or a sign. And then we also looked at how much of what's been implemented achieves stress level 1. So on there's certain parts of the plan where they've identified where they want to take it down to stress level 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the important part of that is that stress level 1 is for the interested but concerned bicyclists, which represents 70% of riders. So when we implement infrastructure for that group is when we will be appealing to the biggest amount of riders. And then the last thing that we looked at was connectivity. This is really important for commuters, right? So the commuters are trying to get to key locations in the city. And what was identified in the plan was downtown Burlingame, downtown Broadway, the Burlingame Plaza, the Millbrae train station, the Burlingame train station, and the hospital. They also identified some parks. We didn't include that, but we did in the ones that I just named off are the ones that we looked at.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, they were looking at there is, in the commute route, there's a north-south route. So that's how do you get through the city north-south, and that's on California. And then there's a route for east-west, and that's Murchison. So we also looked do they connect to each other? So you can go north-south and then go east-west or vice versa. All right, so our findings for the commute route is that it's 10 miles long for east-west. I'm sorry, for north-south. And for the east-west portion. So that's adding them both together. The plan versus existing, there is 1.2 miles that has been put in place. That's according to the plan. So that's 12%. On the commute route, 5.1 miles or 50% is signage, which is, share or a sign that says share the road. Achieving stress level 1, it's 1.4 miles or 14%. And then on connectivity, there's not really true connectivity yet to downtown Burlingame or the Burlingame train station. There is connectivity to Broadway, downtown Broadway. And there's not connectivity hooking the east-west with the north-south yet. I'll go on to the discussion piece unless you want me to pause there.
Pause for just a second so we can digest.
I'm okay for you to continue. Commissioner Johnson, do you want to ask a question at that point, at this
No,
point?
no questions. I'm just trying to.
Okay.
Okay. So, looking at potential metrics, we said for plan versus existing, we recommend that we set a goal of achieving 6 additional miles for a total of 7.2 miles of the 10 miles over the next 3 years. And as a side note, which AMP set a goal of 10, so we're below what their recommended goal was. But we did feel pretty good that 6 additional miles would have a major impact on the infrastructure and is achievable. On stress level 1, we recommend that there be an additional 1.4 miles added. So increasing 1.4 miles to the 6 miles over the next 3 years. And then for connectivity, we recommend that there be connectivity to downtown Burlingame, downtown the train station, as well as north-south meeting east-west. Any comments, questions, thought?
So, Mr. Wong, what we discussed at the last meeting no, we didn't. It was a special meeting with the public, talked about improvements on California Drive between Oak Grove and East Lane, I think.
Correct.
Right, so that would allow this connectivity to the downtown area. So that's a work in progress, or hopefully soon. We have consultants looking at it already, so.
Correct.
Okay, so that would be good. All right, excellent, good.
And I think the other part of this that we've talked about in the past, also with the public, is Murchison, Truesdale, which also is the east-west kind of connection down to California as well. So all of those things have been talked about, which we incorporated in this because we know they're happening or they should be happening, and they will increase the connectivity.
Okay, good. Okay, Commissioner Johnson, anything? Okay.
Do you want to do recreational?
Yeah, sure. I'll talk about the recreational piece. So the recreational piece, really, just if you we talk about the bait,
Yep.
is what the recreational piece is. And it's really 9.6 miles have been identified for the Bay Trail route. So close to the 10 miles that exist for the commute. The Bay Trail route runs north-south, and we talked about the entrance at Coyote Point, all the way to Millbrae Avenue. That's the Bay Trail, Old Bayshore Highway. So that would be the cross section, Millbrae Avenue, Old Bay Shore Highway. East-west connectivity kind of varies. So we'll talk about that as well. So how do we access the recreational route? So starting from the southern part at Coyote Point, it's approximately 1.6 miles starting at North Lane. And you go North Lane to Burlingame and Burlingame Avenue. And it takes you through Howard. Howard has Sherrill's. And it takes you to Howard. Then you go to Humboldt and you make that right turn on Humboldt. There's no markings on Humboldt Road at all. Part of that conversation is, and I know that we've spoken about actually repaving Humboldt. That's part of, I think, a process that we talked about earlier in the commission. Maybe we can add some markings on Humboldt to get to Peninsula, because we're basically repaving from Rollins Road to Peninsula on Humboldt. So if you want to take Howard to Humboldt, you could also potentially identify a bike lane to get you to Peninsula Avenue. Peninsula Avenue is a little bit of a challenge. On the right, on the south side of Peninsula Avenue, on the San Mateo, there is actually a marking for a bike lane, but not on the side of Peninsula Avenue. So that's where you have to walk over the overpass to get to Coyote Point over the 1 overpass. So really no marking on the north side of Peninsula Avenue, but certainly on the San Mateo side of Peninsula Avenue. It's still I wouldn't call that level, or I wouldn't call that stress level 1 at all with all that traffic that goes across the overpass. So it's something that we don't have an answer for, but we think should be considered. Does that make sense? Mr. Wong?
It does, and I was just going to check something, but through the chair, again, Peninsula is split between ourselves and San Mateo.
Yeah.
And our two agencies have a monthly public works engineering meeting that occurs most every month, but if it does, there are times it may not. So one of the things that has come up, because we've brought it to their attention, is the resurfacing of Peninsula, because it's both our streets but there's more to it than just resurfacing, because they've indicated to us that will be starting at some point a process to determine, because they have to, part of it is having a bike facility on there. They have 2 lanes going in their direction and on-street parking, and we have 1 lane most of the part and then on-street parking. But that center line is the city limit line. So we are working towards something like that. So this is actually, while it's further back, because they have to acquire the funding to do the study and things like that. But it's something that's being brought. It's active now, as opposed to no one's working on it. So.
And then also there's a midway point. The Bay Trail, if you get to Carolan and Cadillac Way, by the Porsche dealership, you can cross over to get to that overpass on Broadway. Again, you can ride, defer to Vice Chair Couchy on this one, because I've never ridden my bike over that path, but you can ride your bike over the overpass and connect over by the hotel, by Bayside Park, and access the route that way. So again, we identified that as part of the east-west connection. On the north side, again, I think it's going to be a challenge, just like Peninsula, because it's Millbrae Avenue. And again, nothing marked there for a bicycle path to go over Millbrae Avenue to connect to Bayshore. So same conversation as Peninsula. I'm sure those are going to be long, ongoing conversations to be able to make that a safe bike path. All right. So, and again, our existing path says currently it's 59% or 5.7 miles of the accommodations are according to plan, which is pretty good. And I think most of that runs through Coyote Point and over past Meta. And then once you get past Meta onto Old Bay Shore, it's all marked. And there's, I've driven that quite a few times. There are certain high traffic times, like prior to, or when people are getting to work at Meta and we're leaving work at Meta. But there are certainly times during the afternoon that there's very little traffic in that either direction going towards Bayshore. So our signage is 34% or 3.3 miles. Bike facilities are only signage that is suitable for strong and fearless riders, which represents 3% of our bikers. Again, I think from my observation and from our observation, Meta has the best, I'll say, signage and for bikes, and it's probably just because a lot of people bike to that facility. But we also talked about maybe, I think we may have brought this up before, is painting all of the Cheryl's green instead of just having the white lines. Will bring attention to not just the bikers, but also to the people who are driving vehicles, that is a shared space. So that's just a part of the conversation maybe going forward that we can do. All right. And then stress level 1 at this point is about 41%, which is close to 4 miles. And again, that's really, it's suitable for interest of concerned riders. Of course, they represent 70%. And again, a lot of that is through Coyote Point, Meta, and the low traffic areas at Airport. Access and connectivity, we just talked about. Tough on north and south, but Midway Point over Broadway is certainly accessible. All right, so for the discussion, we just really want to propose a couple of things here. Plan versus existing. We recommend that we set a goal to achieve additional 2 miles for a total of 7.7 miles of the 96. That gets you over close to 80% over the next 3 years. And then stress level 1, we recommended that we set goal to increase stress level 1 by another 2 miles for a total of 6 miles of the 10, which is 60% over the next 3 years. This will increase the level of low stress accommodations on the Bay Trail plan from 41 to 62%. We don't have to talk about connectivity anymore because we talked, that's going to be the challenging thing on the north and south side, but and that's going to be ongoing conversations because of those shared with each city, Millbrae and San Bernardino.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, a couple.
Okay.
So when you say Bay Trail, you're talking about riding in the road adjacent to the actual walking trail, right? Or are you talking about
Well,
on the trail itself?
On the trail itself, it's shared.
Okay,
So not on the road.
not on the road.
Yeah, because it's designed to be shared by both pedestrians and bicyclists. So not on the road, but on the Bay Trail that goes along the water is what
Okay.
we talked about.
So, okay, so then that trail, if you're talking about the trail when you cross north on Broadway, over Broadway, that trail, there's a big gap there. That trail just goes away.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It does.
that's going to be an issue.
It does go. It does go.
But I thought there were sharrows, something in the road, new ones over there. Yeah. Yeah, in the road itself, not on the trail where people walk. Is that correct?
Through the chair?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
North of Broadway, there are sharrows on the northbound, southbound section, and that is a gap. Something that isn't necessarily on here, but the Bay Trail portions, every business or property that fronts it, they're responsible for maintaining that section. So that's something, the Hyatt, that's why when you go down, I believe, is it the Embassy Suites further down? It's a much nicer section. They're maintaining that. And so with the redevelopment, that corner where there used to be the gas station, the northeast corner of Broadway and Bayshore, there's the new office development. So that's part of their conditions of approval. It's nothing, you know, it was where the staging was for the great interchange project. But when that's redeveloped, they are forced to complete to a certain, that's why we had the old Bayshore feasibility study.
Yeah.
That gives you a taste of it. But then to further complicated, everything has to be brought up to sea level. So there's another discussion with that, but someone else is working on that shoreline. But in general, all those properties it's maintained by the owner who fronts it. They maintain it. So that's the agreement. And then just to drop in for the connectivity on the south near Coyote Point, there was last year we talked about, and we're working on making that connection, right? Getting folks when they're coming through Meta to get back onto the Bay Trail right there at, I can't remember the name.
Is it Beach?
beach. That's it right there.
That little-
We talked about it. So we're going to
Beach.
do some improvements there.
Yeah.
We had this discussion last year where we're going to extend some of that and get some ramps up there so you can connect right on. Because yeah, you go out there and you see that's where everyone comes off of onto airport. So some of those things, and wanted to mention, you know, the bicycle master plan we have here. In it, there are the priorities. And so if you go through, I mean, it's not in there, but as we've gone through staff.
Yeah.
I have it online, but there have been a number of them since this was adopted that have been gone through or will. And I'm pleased to say a lot of the ones before where we just put like a symbol Caltrans for the pedestrian improvements along El Camino. A lot of them are identified and then some. Before, like we mentioned, we were going to have flashing beacons. They've gone to put an actual control. So there's a number of them on here. We'll share it with you, but going through it, the pedestrian ones, I think more than 70% of them have been completed or will be. So
I actually think that's a really good point. We didn't do pedestrian improvements because again, we felt like
yeah,
we didn't want to bite off too much, but I do think pedestrian improvements should be added as a metric, you know, just like safe route
Mhm.
be added next year. I think pedestrian improvements.
Mhm. Mhm.
and if you look at the bicycles, I mean, we're not at 50%, but those are much larger projects. But a number of them have been completed as well, right? Through this with the bike boulevard. Yeah, but the pedestrian ones are definitely more so complete percentage than the bicycle.
I didn't
Okay.
know that, but see that's case in point, right? We don't know that, so we can show that
Yeah.
progress
Right.
on the metric. It's helpful to us and it's also helpful to the public.
Right. Right. Okay.
We don't have the numbers, but I think as we go through like the grant applications, we always bring this up. Here's what we've done so far out of this, how much of the chunk we've taken out of this. So we've shared that and we will continue to share it once the next grant opportunity comes up. We'll be sure to, and yeah, that's why that list exists, but it hasn't broken down to obviously key performance index. It's more for us just getting through it. And
Okay. Commissioner Johnson, you have any comments, questions?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, not at this point.
Okay. Okay. And then the last section is results.
So the third one was results. And when you think about what's the biggest project that was done last year, and we have to look at a project that was done at least a year ago so that we have enough time to actually look to see what the results
Yeah.
have been.
Yep.
So the biggest project was the California Road Diet. And, you know, that there's going to be additions, as you know,
Mhm.
discussions to continue that that project to Burlingame Avenue. But we felt like there's enough there. It was, I should point out again that it was awarded an award.
Mhm.
But there was enough there to see if it accomplished what it was set out to do. And it was set out to do a couple of things, to reduce the speeds of the vehicles on that road and to make it safer.
Mhm.
So reduce collisions and incidents. So that would be looking at what the numbers were before the improvements and then looking at them after. Then this is something that would need to be performed by Burlingame
Right.
staff.
Okay.
Something similar to what they did with Lion Hogue.
Okay. Okay. I have no comments on the results. Commissioner Johnson, any comments?
Um, I'll hold, assuming that is there kind of a wrap up period where we sort of talk about next steps?
I think
Yeah.
I know what we should do now.
Yeah.
Talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've made a bunch of notes, but I don't want to, since I'm not in the room, I'm cognizant of the fact that I don't want to take things sideways. So we'll follow your lead. I have a couple of thoughts about next steps and some ideas about the report in general, but I'll hold for you, Commissioner.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. You're
Oh,
You got a hot mic, so
Okay. Coming in hot from Lincoln, Nebraska. So I think, I'm super excited about this, number one. And I have a lot of thoughts about how we simplify. I don't have the answer for that. Because I think it is such great work that we not carry this great work forward that our commissioners have done. The other thing that I have, and these are all questions, not necessarily, I don't have an answer for it. But who else needs to be in alignment with this? And once it's agreed upon, and where else does this report need to have visibility? I guess were the two things that were in my mind. As it relates to the report itself, the one thing that would help me a little bit is in some of the specific activation. I need one of I need one of Andy's maps. So I'm like wanting to like, I'm looking at my cell phone, looking and so I think that would be help the visualization of some of the areas that we're talking about would be, I think, helpful, depending on who the audience is. If it's just us, that's fine. Anyway, those are some initial thoughts as I was listening to you all speak. I don't know if that's helpful. If it's not, disregard it all. But those were just some things that came to mind as I was listening.
So I have a couple of thoughts. So first of all, this is new, right? So it's not like there's not a map of this is the steps. We're kind of, we're exploring what makes the most sense. Who needs to be in alignment is the commission, the Teaspoon Commission, city staff, and city council. We all have to think that the metrics make sense and the goals make sense, so that we are aligned in what we're trying to achieve. Now, before the subcommittee did any work whatsoever, there was conversations taking place with city staff and with city council, to kind of create the framework around how the subcommittee would approach this, what we think the next steps would be. So we weren't doing this blindly, but we are, and that was part of the conversation that took place about that this should feed into the safety data should feed into Vision Zero. And then I think the execution metrics kind of feed in from AMP. But I would say if you look at the overview, or I'm sorry, the first page, when we talk about next steps, I think the next steps is, making sure we all kind of feel comfortable with the 3 different metrics and the direction it's going. I think that the safety measures need to feed into Vision Zero. And then we do need to have another meeting with Syed on this. We haven't had a chance to meet with him because he's been traveling and has been sick. So we need to meet with him. We need to meet with, I think, Peter as well, the mayor, on this, because we met with Donna last year because she was the mayor. Peter's the mayor this year. And then once we kind of get to a point that we feel like there is agreement and there is alignment, and there is, instead of saying the range would be 25 to 35, but we actually can pick a specific number, and then I think we can get that printed out and present it to city council. That's kind of where my head is, but again, we're figuring this out as we go.
Yeah. I get we're in early stages of doing something like this. And by the way, when I asked the questions, it wasn't in any indication that I was intimating that all of this cross connect and inputs and outputs and alignment didn't occur. It was more just a newbie, question mark about what we, like who's involved next. But that's awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so a couple comments. First on the report and the organization of the report. So I would really love to see this as well as your data go to Vision Zero, but I would make some upgrades or edits to the report. This first page, TSP metrics report, I would maybe have executive summary or something on that page. You very clearly identified 3 sections, and I would like to see Roman numeral 1, safety metric, right? Roman numeral 2, executive metric or execution metric. You were very clear on that, and I got kind of lost when I read it, and I started to merge Broadway findings of the Broadway Railroad crossing with execution metric, and I started to focus as the execution metrics just for the Broadway crossing. So if it was delimited by section numbers, I think that might help. That probably would have helped me identify things a little more. And then section 3 would be your results metric. That might help just present this more clearly to a person without the advantage of you explaining it to them. So that's one thing. And then I thought about, this is such great work, and we don't want this to go to be glossed over once and then never looked at again. And so one thought I had was, we as the commission or a public forum, right? Engineering has a project, they scope out a project, they bring concepts to us, they might bring designs to us, and then we have a public forum, a meeting where the community can talk about it. We talk about it because the community has insight. We have insight. We provide all that data and engineering with, best recommendation. Council relies on us to make our best decision on as much data as we gather to go forward before council finally approves, right? So if this were just to hover in our commission, I fear that action wouldn't be taken. And so one thought I had was, you all started a great committee. Maybe we should have a council committee with involvement after Vision Zero is disbanded. And it's not going to go on forever, because you want to follow in the future. You want to follow these metrics, right? I mean, we're not done with this for a while. And as we should, we should follow this in the future. So the thought that I had was, and since council is the decision makers, they have to fund and prioritize what engineering works on to a certain extent. I would like to see this keep them involved, keep people in, committee members from council involved with this like they are right now with Vision Zero. And that'll keep this thing moving forward. It won't get discarded or forgotten about.
No, I think that's a good idea.
So those are my thoughts. And when you are going to share this with council, and that's great. So I would just recommend, to keep this thing alive by having a count, and they can decide, do they want it? Do they want to put a time limit on the committee, or do they want it to just continue, for a while? And we have 2 different types of committees. There's legalese involved with that stuff, but they can decide how they want to do that. And then they would involve people from this commission as part of that committee, and possibly people from the community. That's at their discretion. So that would be my recommendation.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, that's all I have. I think it's a really tremendous amount of work from both of you. If you want to clean this up a little bit, and if you're comfortable with providing the data as well, all 10 tabs of your Excel spreadsheet, as well as the report,
Yep.
to Vision Zero. I'm happy to find the right POC, and we can do that.
I'll do a quick cleanup.
Yeah.
Suggestions.
Yeah, yeah,
And then share that with you.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah. This month would be good since we're going to meet later on in June. So if I can get that to him this month, that'd be good.
Do you know when you're meeting in June?
I don't know yet. It hasn't been announced.
All right.
I was just told by sometime in late in June. Mr. Sai, has he
He's,
have a date picked yet?
I don't know.
Okay, all right.
I
All right.
think it goes without saying, though, I
Yeah.
do think there's quite a bit here.
Yeah.
So I do think it would be ideal if there was another
Sure.
member to the subcommittee and not just dump it all on Tony.
I'll do my best. It's all good.
Okay, well, that's an action we have as you depart, as well as filling the vice chair role. But yeah, agreed, concur. Okay. Any final closing thoughts? Commissioner Johnson, anything? Okay, all right. If not, then I will call this meeting adjourned.